Hello, welcome. This is another video in our series in week number 2 doing our exercises in AutoCAD. And in this video we're going to be doing the toy house. So yeah, let's go ahead and get started. What I did is I opened up my template file. It's always a good idea to do this. Open up your template file and then go ahead and immediately resave that in the file location and the name of your choice. And this one's going to be the toy house. So it has all the settings that our template file has, but now it's going to have unique elements to it that's going to reflect what we have in the toy house. So let's get started. We're going to go to the A-Walls layer, go to the rectangle command. It's a little bit easier to draw a rectangle sometimes than it is lines. And one thing to keep in mind about drawing elements in AutoCAD is you want to draw the simple stuff first and maybe the more complicated things second. So the simple items with the toy house is going to be the rectangle on the bottom. The more complicated items is the trapezoid on top. So let's draw the rectangle first. Once we get the rectangle in place, we have some reference geometry that we can use for the trapezoid on top. And what we also want to do is we want to draw something in model space that represents the total size of our object, and go to paper space and do our scaling first. And it's always a good idea, again, especially with something that's more complicated, you want to be able to dimension as you go. So once we get our scaling done using our viewport in paper space, we use that scale factor to scale up or down our dimensions in order for them to fit the page. And then we're going to go ahead and dimension as we go as we do our toy house. So let's do this. Let's do that rectangle. And you want to make sure that when you stretch this out that you still have your polar tracking on, which comes on when you see those dashed green lines. You want to position your rectangle in such a manner that those dashed green lines do not show, so you can enter the actual coordinates. So if you enter 6, tab 3, that should give us the rectangle we're looking for. Let's go to paper space and take a look at that. That looks okay. It's coming in. One thing to keep in mind about your scaling, maybe you can do a little bit of mental math here before you actually start guessing on the scales. My viewport is already unlocked, by the way. And one thing to keep in mind about the bottom of the toy house, it is 6 inches. So, and that's going to fit in roughly about a 6 or 7 inch length of the viewport in the bottom. So it's just going to fit. It actually might be a little big. Let's go ahead and check on that. So go to our standard scale in our properties toolbar, our properties palette. Let's choose the 1-to-1 scale. And I think that's probably going to be a little big, just because by the time we get the roof on and get our dimensions on, which is going to be 2 inches or 1 inch on either side, I don't think it's going to fit. I think it's going to be pretty crowded. So let's go to the next scale up, which is going to be 6 inches is equal to a foot. Looks a little small, but there really is no interim scale unit between there. So let's go ahead and choose that, at least for now. And now that we have that chosen, we're going to go ahead and do yes. And what's the scale factor for standard scale of 6 inches equal to 1 foot? It is 2. So keep that in mind, it is 2. So go to model space. Let's finish our house. We're going to go ahead and explode this. So think about polylines or polygon. It consists of polylines. Polylines are considered one unit depending on how many polylines are connected to each other. And the thing about this rectangle is we have 4 lines connected to that polygon. These are only 4 polylines. So when you click on any of the polylines, the whole thing gets selected. And the basic element in AutoCAD is a line going between 2 points. So what we want to do is we want to explode that. The reason we want to do that is we want to liberate this line. We don't want to have stack lines. And when you want to either erase this or stretch that line out in order to make that line 8 inches rather than 6 inches. So for now I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I'm just going to draw a regular line out. Anywhere out here I'm going to make that 8 inches. I'm going to take that line and I'm going to move it to the bottom where I can pick up the reference. So I'm going to take the midpoint of that line, go to the midpoint of the 6 inch line on the bottom, and then move that. So go to the move command, click on that endpoint, click on this endpoint, and that moves it up. Something very similar, I'm going to take the 6 inch line and copy it. That goes on top of the house. So I can take this 6 inch line, copy it, move it up here, select that line, and then move that up 2 inches. Another way of doing it as an alternative, just draw a reference line going up from the midpoint, make that 2 inches. Draw a 6 inch line again, 6 inches, enter, grab the midpoint here, put it on that, and so on and so forth. What I'm doing is I'm showing a variety of different ways of doing the same thing. Settle on a way that you think will be the fastest and most comfortable or easiest for you to remember. Typically there are some methods that take less keystrokes than others. Therefore, if you're doing this all day long, at the end of the day you might be able to take off from work a half hour or 45 minutes earlier if you do adapt some of these productivity techniques. So remember our scale for our annotations for our dimensions. Scale factor is 2 because our scale is 6 inches equal to a foot. So to 4 we're going to make that 2 and then enter. So we're going to go to the Hood tab, pick the dimension layer, pick our linear dimension, and dimension it just like the website. Actually, what we want to do on this side is click this line down here as we did, and in this line we're going to click that. That way we don't have overlapping dimension lines on our object itself. So that should be in pretty good shape. I think I'm missing one dimension. We can go ahead and click inside of this while we're in paper space. And put that dimension on. You can pick up that dimension relationship. Just like that, so that they're nice and aligned. And that looks pretty attractive. One thing you might want to do is take a viewport and move it around a little bit so it's centered in the drawing. And that's it. Last thing you want to do, and I'm going to go through this, change your drawing name, change the date if you have to, change the scale, which is going to be 6 inches equal to a foot, and save your file and print it out, and that should be ready to go.